What's up, guys? All right, so today's video comes from a request from one of you guys. What is that? It is the FiveSeven. This is the first gen. I know I don't have the second or third, but I do have a first gen, and the Smith & Wesson new FiveSeven, the M&P 5.7 against the FiveSeven. I want to say right now, from a weight standpoint, this gun weighs nothing. From an aesthetic standpoint, this gun looks horrible. Smith & Wesson looks way better. From a grip standpoint, this is just out of the box. The grip of the FN feels way better to me than the Smith, because I had to put a grip sleeve on the Smith to actually get it to fit my hand, because it was just way too narrow and long, versus FN actually got their grip a little fatter and it just fits in my hand better. Sight picture is horrible on the FN, in my opinion. These sights are horrendous. They are big, bulky. They are adjustable, but I just don't care for them. I'm also not a big fan of how light this gun is with all the polymer on it. That's just me. A lot of people may really like that. I don't. Another thing I'm not a fan of is when I'm trying to rack this in the front, because this is the way I do it. This right here kind of stops you. You can kind of see how that is right there. That makes it a little more difficult to do, but you can always just do it like that, so it doesn't really matter. But just my opinion, as one thing that I would ding this gun for. It does have a safety. You can hit it with this finger, or you can probably hit it from the other side. It's ambidextrous. That's a weird place for a safety, in my opinion. I usually don't turn it on. Your slide stop is not ambidextrous, and it's on this side only, and it's way back here where you can actually hit it, so I don't hate that. And your takedown lever is right here. The trigger is not totally flat face, but it's kind of flat faced, and it does have grooves in it, and then of course you have your pick rail up front. But overall, this has been a good gun. I have hundreds of rounds through this, not thousands, because FiveSeven is stupid expensive, but I do have hundreds of rounds through that. And I do want to just say that something on this gun just caught me. It's like that, how sharp that tip is right there, and it just like raked it across my thumb, and that didn't feel good. So it's not very bit dehorned. Now, Smith did this better on this than they do their normal M&Ps. They got these serrations back here where you can rack it like so, and this gun is super smooth. The trigger is somewhat flat-faced. The ambidextrous controls are actually ambidextrous, and it does not have a safety. As you can see, the blocks right here block that off. This is where your safety would be. This one is optics ready. This one is not, but the new one is. So we're not going to ding it for that, because you can buy the newer version, the Gen 3 or whatever, which does even look better than this. And it is optics ready. Looks on this, the aesthetics, I've talked about how I didn't like it, but really and truly the new one doesn't look as bad. But this is the only one I have to go by. I'm not a big fan of this one, but I've had this gun for many years, and I bought it when it came out. But there's a lot of iterations of that gun that you can buy, different colors, whatever you want. The sights, definitely have to go to the Smith & Wesson. These sights are way better than those, in my opinion. I just do not care for how big and blocky, and this front sight is just wide and enormous. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of that. The mag releases, the Smith & Wesson is a stretch. That grip is pretty wide. The FiveSeven I can get to fairly easy. Again, I do like the way the grip feels on this one better. Also, the Smith is threaded, and these things are actually pretty quiet overall. But it is threaded, so if you want to run a suppressor, you can do that. You have a pick rail as well. I think aesthetically, the Smith is just better looking aesthetically. Now let's get into the magazines. Both these magazines load kind of like AR mags. You just put them down here. You don't actually push them down, slide them. You just drop them down and pop them in from the top, just like you would an AR. A lot of people have said they've had problems out of their M&P magazines. The only problem I've had is it's hard to get the last few rounds in, which is that way with a lot of magazines, but it's very difficult with this one. And if the slide is shut, it is hard to get this magazine in, sometimes even if it don't have rounds in it. I don't know what it's catching on, but sometimes, let's see if it'll go in now. See, it's not, you just heard it pop in right there. it is hard to get this magazine in sometimes. I don't know why that is. Now, if you just want to, you can slam it in like that and it will seat, but you can take this one and just be like, just pops right in. That I don't know why the Smith & Wesson magazine does that, but that's the only issue I've had. It's almost like these are a little low, and the spring is so hard it just doesn't want to seat very well. It also feels like it kind of gets caught on something. I don't know what it is. I've not really dove into it to try to find it out, because this isn't something I'm going to be carrying. This is kind of like a range toy, or, you know, something to show your friends if you feel like you're spending a couple $100 on, you know, a few hundred rounds. But that's what this is. So I don't really worry about that. The magazines are, you know, polymer versus steel. I do prefer steel magazines. I'm trying to see if this is steel reinforced. I don't even think this one is steel reinforced. It might be, but it does not feel like it. I like metal magazines better. It's just my opinion. But let's quit rambling. Let's quit the shooting. I'll talk about the recoil, which is probably not going to be any in either gun, and then we'll talk about the triggers, and then we'll back it up and see how good I am with open sights or regular sights or iron sights. That's what I'm looking for at 40 yards. Let's get to doing this. All right, guys, first up is the FiveSeven. So let's just get a feel for it. It's been a minute since I've shot it, but there again, I've got hundreds of rounds through both these pistols, so I'm pretty familiar with both of them. All right, ran flawlessly, just like it always has. I've never had a malfunction out of this gun. Out of the hundreds of rounds I put through it, no malfunctions at all. And it feels fine. The grip feels better, in my opinion, than the Smith, but we'll get into that here in a minute. I do want to say, this little ledge right here that kind of guards the slide lock, it's a double-edged sword. I don't ride it because my hand don't hit it because of that wedge or ledge, but it does kind of poke into your hand. Nothing major. I mean, it's not like it's killing me to shoot it. I could put hundreds of rounds through it and not have a big deal, but you can see it right there. You see that red spot? That is what was hitting that on it, and did cause that little bit of a red spot right there. Let's see this right here. Ugh. So you can drop the slide with the slide lock one-handed, and it's very easily to reach that. Again, magazine release easily wrench with one hand and without having to like change my grip, but I do have pretty big hands. Without further ado, let's get into the Smith & Wesson. Words are hard when you're cold. I've been over here for probably a few hours now, and it's in the 30s, so it's getting hard to talk. All right, guys, Smith & Wesson time. Let's see how hard this magazine is to insert. You got to put some pressure on that. I mean, again, you can slam it home, but if you're just pushing up in there, it's got to put some pressure on it. Easier to rack, though. Easier to rack. Okay, slide lock back, no issues at all. Didn't ride the slide stop like I do on every SIG that I ever own. Let's see if you can get to it. So I'm holding it like this. I do have to change my grip a little bit because this grip seems a little wider. You can do it. This one is much smaller and a little bit harder to hit, but there again, it is ambidextrous. Again, magazine release, I threw it way over there, but it was empty. But I can hit it without having to change my grip too much. And with the ergo grip on here, this gun feels better in my hand, but without the ergo grip, I have to give the grip to the FN. But how are the triggers? That's what means the most, right? Triggers. Everybody wants to know about the triggers. All right, here we go. There's some take up right here. That feels weird too. It's like a little catch and it pops through it. But there's your take up wall. Must have a magazine. I never noticed that. You can't fire this without the magazine in it. I had never noticed that. I swear I'd never noticed that. All right, check us out. Right there's your take up. Don't feel bad. Over travel isn't too bad. Reset. Let's see here. Not too long. Not too long. I think the Smith & Wesson's probably going to beat it. I've never noticed that had a magazine. Stop it. Let's see here. All right, so take up, about the same, doesn't have that catch. That thing breaks a lot. Reset, right there. Smith & Wesson has a way better trigger, in my opinion, than the 5.7, but how will it do at distance? All right, guys, before we back up there, I want to talk about the magazines. The FN is definitely easier to load. I want to say I can't feel my fingers. They're just, after being out here for hours, you can see they're just dried up. And trying to hold these little 5.7 rounds, I was dropping them everywhere. My dexterity is gone. But even like that, the FN magazine was easier to load than the Smith & Wesson. The Smith & Wesson, I was dropping rounds because they were kicking out. They were just harder to get in, and it was just, I was actually cussing these little rounds because they were just, I couldn't feel them, and it was just hard to get in this magazine. These I might have dropped one, but the rest of them went in just fine. But the Smith & Wesson had me aggravated, and you can see the 10th round is in opposite places. It's on this side of this one and on this side of this one. This one does hold 22 rounds. This one does hold 20. So let's back up out here with my numb hands and see what I can hit with open iron sights. This is gonna be bad. All right, guys, first up, 40 yards. It's a steel, the FN. We're gonna try it first. I don't have high hopes for this, but we're gonna see how it works anyway. All right, 9 out of 10. I'll take it. With cold hands and open sights, 9 out of 10. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. Let's see if we can do as good with the Smith & Wesson. All right, guys, Smith & Wesson time. The hoe grip does help, but this gun always wants to shoot a little bit left for me. So let's see how we do at 40 yards. Let's see how exaggerated that is. I shoved that magazine in and it didn't seat. That's the only issue I've really had with my magazines. You really got to slam them in the gun to get them to seat. Well, guys, Smith & Wesson was tearing it up, and I got overconfident so much that I did pull a shot. But even after I pulled a shot, I settled back down, 9 out of 10. I think if I would have just not been so cocky there when I started just ringing them up, because this gun's so flat shooting, that I'd have hit all 10 out of 10. But 9 out of 10 is what we got, and that's what we're gonna stick with, because that's what we did. Even though I was the issue there and I got a little overconfident, the gun could have done it. Apparently I cannot shoot as good as the gun can. Let's take the camera back up here, get it set back up. I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, guys, final thoughts time. If I was gonna buy one of these today, and it was only gonna be one of them, which one would it buy? Smith & Wesson. I think the Smith & Wesson makes one of the best 5.7 pistols on the market. The way they do their barrels, the way it rotates, and the way that it's a gas system, and the port's way up here, so the bullets almost left the barrel before the gun starts cycling. That just eases in the recoil. Even though 5.7 don't have a lot of recoil anyway, that just makes this recoil just non-relevant. It's not even there. And like I said, with the grip sleeve, this gun feels really good in my hand, and I was way overconfident shooting that target because it was shooting quick, and I was hitting very easily. I was a little concerned because this gun does shoot just a little bit left, but again, all of them on target, and had no issues at all. I think with a little bit of practice with this gun, I could easily reach out to way further distances than 40 yards, especially if I'd put an optic on it. And running it today really makes me want to put an optic on it. But we'll have to see if we do that in the future, because this isn't a gun I'm going to be taking out a lot. This is just something for fun. And 5.7 ammo is pretty expensive. Speaking of expensive, let's talk about the difference. can't remember how much this gun was. I think it was like $630 some or $600 and some, like $1,000. That's a big difference. And I'd be able to say you'd buy a lot of ammo for that, but with FiveSeven, you really can't, because it's like $40 to $50 a 50. So you're basically $1 a shot or more, depending on taxes and how much you buy it at. So you're really not going to be able to buy, but you know, a few hundred rounds, but at least you do get a few hundred rounds, and in my opinion, a better pistol. Again, the only issue I have had with this gun is it shot a little left until I put the sleeve on it, and these magazines, when they're empty, they go in really easy. But when it's loaded, not so much. So if you buy one of these, make sure you put this magazine in with authority, or it's going to fall out your feet when you start shooting it. Again, I appreciate you guys watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comment sections below. Would you choose the FN? Maybe not this one, there is a newer one out, but would you choose the FN 5.7, or would you choose the Smith & Wesson M&P 5.7? For me, it was a pretty easy choice shooting both of them side by side, but I'd like to know what you think. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. I love you guys. We'll see you next time.